Good evening and welcome to Democratic TV, Democratic television for Knox County by Democrats. My name is Doug Veum. I'm your host this evening, and my guests are Drocella Mugorewera, who's the Executive Director of Bridge Refugee Services, and Grant Standefer, who is the Executive Director of the Compassion Coalition. And we're going to talk about how these agencies assist refugees coming to this part of the state can integrate into the community. There's been much attention paid to the issue of refugees in the world at this time. I think we have more refugees now than we've had at any time in our history because of all the unsettled situations in the Middle East and Africa and a number of places around the world. And so there's more need now than ever for a method of integrating them back into societies that are stable like ours. And we're one of the most stable, I suppose, and probably one of the most places that they want to be. And so what we want to do tonight is we want to learn how a particular agency in Knox County is helping refugees resettle in America, who they're resettling, and what is the result of that settlement. But before we get started on that, I'd like to give the audience a short sketch of each of my guests. And Drocella, why don't you tell us who you are?
I am Drocella Mugorewera. I am the Executive Director for Bridge Refugee Services, but I also represent Tennessee and the Refugee Congress.
You do? Okay. Yeah. All right.
And I'm Grant Standefer. I'm the Executive Director of Compassion Coalition, and we seek to inform our local churches here in Knox County about what's going on in our community and places where they can engage to make a difference for good, particularly among those who are marginalized or disenfranchised.
Okay, now let's just get started. First of all, who are refugees? How do you decide who the refugee is that gets to use your services and things like that? Is there a definition? Is there a process? What is the process?
So before I talk about the refugee definition, let me say that we are thankful that America has been a long and global leader in the world that is settling the most vulnerable people in the world.
The most vulnerable.
Yes, the most vulnerable. The refugees are among those ones. And we are glad that this life-saving program exists. So the refugees normally are the people who have to flee their country and seek protection because they are persecuted or have fear to be persecuted because of their race, religion, political opinion, social group, and war and violence. So they have to flee their country. And the process, how it works, in order to get the refugee status, you have to prove it. You have to prove the reasons of that fear, and through United Nations High Commissioner of Refugees. And then when you get that refugee status, so they connect you to the United...
To you?
Yeah.
Right. I've heard that it takes a couple of years to go through the process.
Yeah.
So what is included in that process? I mean, are they looking at your background? What are those who are doing the checking, so to speak? What are they doing?
The process normally, on average, takes 18 to 36 months.
18 to 36 months.
And
okay.
They check, you do interviews, they check your bio data, they do a security check, and many national agencies in the U.S. are involved, including international agencies.
Sounds a bit like getting a security clearance.
Yeah, and the refugees, I can tell, are the most scrutinized people entering in the U.S.
And the scrutiny is done outside of the United States.
Yes.
It's done in the home countries? Or?
No, it's not done in the home country because, as I explained, you have to flee a country to go to another country.
Okay.
And then United States is considered as a resettlement country.
Sure. Okay. So let's be clear about this. A refugee has a status that has been determined by a number of agencies, including the United Nations High Commission on Refugees, and they're vetted in ways that many of us probably couldn't survive, right?
Yeah, there are almost 7 steps.
7 steps, yeah.
Which the refugee go through. You do register, and the United Nations High Commissioner collects the data about you, and then they verify it, and then you get the refugee status.
Okay.
When you get the refugee status, you are connected to the resettlement support center. Your data are given to that center, and then you go through the security check where United States national security agencies are involved, and then including FBI, National Counterterrorism Agency, and many others. And then the Department of Homeland Security provide different interviews.
Okay.
After that, when biometrics are sent, so the fingerprints, you do the fingerprints, and let alone when you are approved, you go through cultural orientation. They teach you how the life in U.S., why you face, and how you have to adapt and integrate the community.
And that's all before you come here.
Before you come. And then when your case is assigned to national agencies, so there are total 9 national agencies, but Bridge Refugee Services works with Episcopal Migration Ministries and Church World Service. So these are the agencies who are negotiating with the federal government that they present the cases, and the federal government accepts them, and then the money is channeled to those agencies.
To an agency like Bridge.
Yes. And then when they say you are approved, you go through medical screening, and then when you pass it, you get a loan, a travel loan through International Organization for Migration, which you will pay when you start to work.
Okay.
And let alone when you pass the medical screening and you have a ticket, and at the last minute, the transportation agencies, also the security agency, will check you before you fly. And then if the clearance is given, so you can fly to the U.S., and when you arrive, you find Bridge Refugee Services case manager and the community members to welcome you at the airport.
Okay, so that's kind of the denouement. That
Yeah.
when you get there, but it's a pretty complicated process through there. All right, so what does someone who has gone through all of that screening and has now been assigned to your agency, what then happens?
So if they are assigned to us, we do assure them first. So the national agencies say, hey, this is a case. You in Knoxville, do you have enough resources to accept this case? And then we do assurance, and then we wait.
Okay.
And then when they send this client to us, we have to prepare an apartment, to set up an apartment. This is why the churches and other places of worship will come on and help and giving donations, and then we will go to welcome them at the airport, and we have to provide interpretation with the case manager, take them to the apartment, and then giving orientation in the new apartment, because many of them sometimes have lived in camps and they don't know what to expect.
Right. Now that's where you get involved at that point. Then is that right, Grant? I mean, your agencies or your contacts then help that.
Right, and of course what we do, we encourage our churches. We're constantly trying to inform our churches about here's what's happening in our community, because sometimes we, like we all do, we get busy in our lives and we don't pay attention to what's happening. But we have a number of refugee families coming to Knoxville every year. So we try to inform our churches about Bridge and about how they operate. And so we also try to tell churches there's all sorts of ways that you can get involved. You can actually be a church that sponsors a refugee family. And of course that involves everything from helping them with their medical situations, making sure that they have, after they get here, and the children. I remember the church that I was a part of, we sponsored a refugee family from Sudan. And so when the kids were going to school, we had to make sure they got all their shots, and help them with transportation, help them with those kinds of things. So we encourage churches to say, hey, you can even just have a team that goes and meets them at the airport and welcomes them and makes sure that they're welcome. So
move some apartment furniture into an apartment.
That's right.
Some things like that.
Yes.
And even sometimes provide furniture. We used to do that with the furniture ministry. We don't have our furniture ministry now, so we could put it on our bulletin board that goes out once a week and say we have a need for a refugee family. If you have this kind of furniture, Could you help with that?
Right.
So.
And we are very grateful that the response from the community is very, very encouraging.
Now, how
Yeah.
much of the refugees are coming after having been out of their home at least a couple of years. So they're basically destitute in a sense. I mean, they don't have anything other than what they can carry with them. How long does it take to get them settled I mean, how many days, and who else helps you besides the churches? Is there any other programs that help?
So the goal of the refugee resettlement, which is a public and private partnership,
Okay, so there's both of
is yes, both of them, is to make this refugee to become self-sufficient economically as soon as possible.
Yeah.
On average, I can tell like 6 months.
Yeah.
So the 6 months, within 6 months after arrival, they can pay their bills and they can sustain their families, and then they connect to the community. So the 3 pillars, so they can be fully integrated in the community. They have to learn English, most of them, and then we have to get them employed. The most important thing is to get employed,
Right.
having income, and then pay yourself and not depending on any other
Right.
assistant.
So that
And
you
then the
help them do
third
that.
pillar is community engagement.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because they are our neighbors, they are new Americans, they are on their path to become citizens.
Right.
So we have to help them to learn the culture, but also they are bringing the social and cultural and economic values. So
Yes.
it's like a win-win. So
Right.
with the welcoming community and what they are bringing, so there are a lot of to learn and to gain.
One of the things we do want to talk a little bit about is what is the economic impact on it. But at this point, it seems like it's almost a bootstrap operation. In other words, they're coming with not a lot, and there's not a lot of cash that helps them, but there's a lot of help from people like us
Yes.
if we step forward. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it's correct. And I think as resilient people, they are hard workers, and they have a strongly relationship with the family, based on the family. And what we have seen is that if people, the welcoming communities, they know that these people are starting from scratch and basing on the tradition of welcoming and hospitality of Americans,
Yeah.
this gives hope
Yeah.
to those people to thrive.
I've observed, not real close up, but I've observed close enough so that I can see it. A family coming here not speaking English, not really knowing much about the culture here, having spent 20 years in a refugee situation in Central Africa, came here and within a very short period of time were working. They were participating. Their kids, of course, learned English almost immediately. I mean, they go to school and within a few weeks they're speaking English. So I've seen that. I've observed that close up, so I can actually see it happen. That family that I'm talking about, baby's been here 6 years. They own 2 houses. I mean, the family here now lives in 2 different houses that they own. Yeah, I mean, it's been remarkable, and they work. I mean, they contribute right off the bat.
Yes, they work, they're entrepreneurs, they
Uh-huh.
fill the gap. So, and I can tell we have a family from Congo. It's a family of 6. They came in August last year. Now they have a car. The children are in school, and the mother and the father are working, and they are helping other even in their van to go to work. So they are contributing. And there are many other families and single parents and single guys who really are contributing to the economy. And then also there are a lot of to learn from refugees as resilient people. They have healing stories. So
Yeah.
people, the volunteers who have been working with them, they say,
That's
oh,
interesting, yeah.
yes.
So in other words, the volunteers learn something as well.
Yeah, they do.
They come away having done. Well, so what? Do you have any examples of families that you've seen happen? I have a little experience with one, but you must have experience with dozens of them. Like, what kind of jobs do they wind up getting to do? Where do they live?
So-
what do they do in their community?
So I can give an example. If a family who succeeded, a family of 7, they have 5 children, and then the children had to go to school. They graduated from the college. Within 7 years, every child has a car. So they graduated from college. The family owns a house, and the parents participate in the different board of directors, so they are non-profits. So they contribute in ideas, economically, socially.
They're volunteers like Grant's looking for, is what you're telling me. In other words, after they've been here a few years, they're now the people who are providing the volunteer services.
Yeah.
Now, you must see this happen a lot as well.
We
Right.
do, and it's been wonderful to see as our churches sponsor
Right.
or work with in some capacity with Bridge. And as Drocella just said, they grow, they learn, yes, they're helping a refugee family, but it's really a wonderful growth opportunity. It's kind of like the old saying about the Grinch, his heart grew 3 sizes that day. And
Yeah.
so our folks that work with refugee families from our churches are enriched,
Yeah.
and they it's a blessing to them. They grow
Right.
in ways that they would not have if they had not helped a refugee
So
family.
it's a two-way street, is
Yes.
what you're saying.
And they can say that they are in hospitality industry, manufacturing, and I can tell the Monterey Mushroom has almost 40 people they hired, and they said 5 of them are among the most one who are doing perfection over there, so who are succeeding, and also they work in areas like cleaning services, and some do have the businesses.
Sure. Well, one of the members of the family, one of the breadwinners of the family that I know about, is a highly skilled welder. You know, able to do something that takes a skill that not a lot of people have, and so he's been able to, you know, take that skill and work for a company here who really appreciates the fact that he's here. So,
in the Chattanooga area, they worked with Volkswagen.
Okay,
they
right,
work
sure.
with the coffee industry. So they are in different ways of living economical sectors.
So now that right now we are in a hiatus. Right now we are not letting any refugees in. Is that correct?
No, they are coming.
They are. Okay.
They are coming. Now we expected 365. Up to date, we have 167. So we are up to 46% of expected numbers.
Okay, you've got 167 in. You expect 365.
Yeah.
For the and now is that Knox County or is
it's
that?
Eastern Tennessee, Knoxville, and Chattanooga. So
okay.
we were planning
Eastern Tennessee.
120 for Chattanooga and 245 in Knoxville.
Okay.
But on the top of refugees, we do resettle asylees, who are the people fulfilling the same conditions of persecutions like the refugees, but we do help them after getting asylum status.
Right. I was going to talk in another program about asylum, but let's talk about that for a minute. Who are the asylum seekers? And they're fleeing. They could be fleeing a violent husband or a gang-related incident, almost from anywhere in the world, right?
They flee because of the same situation, the persecution, because of the race, religion, like refugees, but they apply for asylum status on entry port in not outside, but inside the United States.
So the asylee comes directly to the United States. Exactly right.
So another category we serve are SIVs, the special immigrant visa holders, like the people who served with our army in Iraq or Afghanistan, and also we serve Cuban and Haitian, mostly in Chattanooga. So these are the categories of people we serve.
I've been reading about that. I understand also that it's pretty difficult to get asylum status.
It does take many times, years.
Now, what can they? If they enter the United States, can they stay here while they're being evaluated, or do they?
Yes, they stay here and they introduce their file through the Department of Homeland Security, and they do the checks, they do interviews, and then when they are approved, this is why we can start to help them.
Then you can help them. Yeah,
yes,
exactly. Well, now you said you've got 165
individuals
coming this year, or have already been here.
They are already here.
And you're expecting some more
Yes,
after that.
if the ceiling now
couple
is
hundred more after this.
the ceiling. Yes, we expect a couple of more, but I do not know if we get to.
Okay.
The,
How do they do the refugee? Do they get to pick where they go, or do they? What is the criteria for them coming to you versus Nashville?
So they do not pick where they go unless they have a family member in
Okay.
that area or a relative who wants to help them to integrate the community. So the criteria we are using, for example, the capacity of the welcoming community. Do we have affordable housing? About transportation, because we have to put them on the bus line. Do we have enough languages spoken on staff or in the community? How about the medical situation?
Okay.
So those are the criteria. I can tell you, like now in Knoxville and Chattanooga, we can't accept the big size families.
Because
like
you don't have
6.
housing for that?
Yes, because we will not have affordable either 4-bedroom apartment
Right, okay.
or houses.
How interesting, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's some limitations. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a good opportunity of investment.
Yeah, I guess so. You could invest in the housing that would do that.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. All right, now, why did I think that there was a hiatus, that there was a blocking of refugees coming in for a couple of months? Has there been, or is that just something that I made up in my head?
So you know that the court order suspended that.
Okay, in other words,
Yeah.
that's still that suspension. The
Yes.
court suspension still
So,
holds.
yes,
Okay.
and the last 2 weeks we did get like 15 arrivals.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
they're still coming.
they're still coming.
And I think that's real important for us to,
Yeah, it is.
for our viewers to understand that there is no hiatus. That
Right,
we
that-
do
I think-
have families coming
Exactly.
in.
There's a need right
There
now.
is a need right now.
Yeah, that's
exactly
a good
right.
point. I'm glad we asked that question. All right. Where the people who have been here in the last few months, you're talking about the 167, where basically do they live and where do they work right now? Are they all over the county or out of the county? Or?
They work mostly in the Knox County, but there are some who are working out of Knox County, like Denzel, Melville, is SL Tennessee, which is auto manufacturer parts, and auto parts manufacturer, and there are one who in the Loudon, like Monterey Mushroom, but there are other ones working in hotels and the food industry.
Well, now, how many of them are in school?
So last year, nationwide, like the population we serve, I think the 72% were women.
72%?
Yes, and children. So in Bridge, especially, resettled half of the clients were children, and we settled in Knoxville 231, and then Chattanooga we did settle 116.
Wow, yeah.
So in the majority were children. So we do locate them close to the employment services, but if they have to carpool, this is how they go to like Mervo, but the transportation is an issue, the housing is an issue. So, but the community, there is a caucus, for example, in the community about housing, and they had a meeting today, and we are glad that the community is owning that caucus. So they are concerned about welcoming and then provide all the needs for the refugees.
Where does Bridge get its money? How do you get funded?
So we are mostly federally funded.
Federal.
And then the community, the private organization, they do support. So we
that's where grant comes in.
the churches, the other place of worship contributes, individual contributes. You can donate online. You can send a check to Bridge. Yeah, and also in kind. I did talk about, and you can give your talent. You can become a mentor. You can tutor in English. So there are many opportunities and if you help the employment services, we can get more money. So,
So you solicit, essentially. You go out and find employers who will help them get jobs. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Is that benefits?
We have an employment specialist who do job orientation, job development, and we provide interpretation when they go to interviews and other services. And I can tell you that SL Tennessee and Monterey Mushroom, they created English learning on the site.
On the site,
So
on the
which
website,
is we appreciate that partnership.
There's a number of people who are working, a number of people who are in school. What other benefits are there? What do we do on the public side? Do we have any kind of programs that help supplement their income while they're kind of getting their feet on the ground and all?
So the public side, they do provide in-kind donations.
Okay.
So which like furnishing apartment, providing some.
Okay, now is that the local government or is that the federal government or?
So the federal government normally give us money to help with the housing at the
Okay,
very
give it to
beginning.
you.
Yes,
Yeah.
so it is channeled to those
you.
national agencies. So, but we do provide the housing. The children have to be enrolled in school. We help with the medical screening. They help with, we have to make sure they get the Social Security on time.
Okay.
So there are some core services we have to provide, and the case management. And I did talk about cultural orientation.
Now, are they going to become citizens?
Yes.
They are. Okay, I think that's important too.
So after 1 year, a refugee become a permanent resident.
For a resident, okay.
And then after 5 years, if the same condition which made you to become a refugee still there and you want to become a U.S. citizen, you pass a test.
Okay.
100 questions you have to go through and learn, and and if you pass the test, you become a U.S. citizen.
My guess is that to go through all of that takes some moxie. Some people who do that have got some. So when they come here, we're getting a pretty high quality, pretty developed person, aren't we?
Yes.
We benefit from that as a society.
Sure, they bring a set of skills.
Yeah.
Today I was talking with 2 mechanical engineers. We have some social workers. We have other ones who worked in industries. And even those ones who are unskilled, they are willing to work. They are eager to work, and they learn.
Right.
Yeah, and
That's what I'm thinking, that if you're going to go through all this process and you survive this, you're not going to stop at that point. You're used to doing the hard work.
Yes, they are hard workers, and they are committed and engaged and determined.
Yeah.
Well, and Drocella does a great job too of partnering and working and communicating and connecting with other groups. We've been working together ever since Drocella, well, before Drocella became the executive director, but there's another group in town that actually helps those who are perhaps in the medical profession or engineers, but they're not licensed or certified here. So there's another group here in town that works with them. So Drocella and Bridge, they partner with them.
Right.
So it is all of us working together to try to help them become a part of our community.
And in doing that, we strengthen the fabric of the whole community.
Sure.
Yeah. See that, and I think that's something that tends to get missed a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a meme out there. There's a sense that they're draining the resources instead of adding to the resources. And the fact is they're really adding. They're adding to the output of the country. They're adding to the skills of the country. They're adding to the community in many ways.
Imagine yourself fleeing your country, go to a third country.
I can't.
So you will need some support at the very
you would need
beginning.
some,
And then you will use your skills and the connection, the
right.
relationship to move ahead. So they are bringing a lot of value to our nation.
I've got to confess, I'm not sure I could do that. I mean, at this, certainly not at my age, but I mean, that's a pretty tough job. So, is there anything we're just about at the end of our time. Is there anything we need that I didn't cover that we need to cover?
So, what I wanted to say also is like every 3 months, we have a quarterly consultation meeting.
Okay, yeah, that's okay.
So, and then we inform the community who is coming, what are the needs, and how they can be helpful.
They can get in touch with you by going to bridgeservices.com, is that right?
Yes, www.bridgerefugees.org.
Okay,
Yes.
.org, okay,
Yes.
Bridgerefugee.org.
.org,
Yes,
okay,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
All right, okay, we will be back next week with another show. We're going to have the remote area medical people with us next week. Look forward to them. Thanks for tuning in tonight.